Yep, I did it. As you can already see in the title, I was able to win the biggest Regulation G online tournament there is so far, and I'm pretty happy about this performance. The tournament happened last weekend. It was the VGC Trainer School Open Reg G $400 prize pool tournament on Limitless. As you can see, Saturday, April 27th. So it was last weekend. And what's even more crazy about this win is that I was playing two tournaments simultaneously, because at the same time there was the Victory Road Spring Challenge tournament. And as you can see, this tournament was also super stacked. Here you can take a glimpse of the players that participated in it: Jay Moti, Davide Career, Oliver Askelin, Stefan Mott, and so on and so on. Like, a lot of insanely good players. And I played this tournament, and with a second switch I played the other tournament, this one, and I had to play simultaneously sometimes. Like, I had to play on both switches at the same time, and that was crazy. And then still pulling off the win still feels so surreal to me. And today I just wanted to talk about the top 8 teams right here in this tournament and about my tournament 1, because I was using my Corridon team. This one, as you can see, I won't show the EVs because there's a good chance that I will use the team in future ones. I will make a team report in the future, but not now, because Regulation G is still fresh and I don't want to reveal all my tags. So first of all, I had a Corridon as my restricted Pokemon. Some of you might have known already that I'm a huge Corridon believer, because there was also another tour 1 week before, on April 20th, the VGC Honolulu Challenge, with also very good players, and I was able to finish in 3rd, and I used the exact same team back then. And it's crazy how good Corridon feels to me. With Terra Fire and Fire coverage in the sun, you do an insane amount of damage. And with Collision Course, you have a reliable fighting step as well, and Flame Charge also feels great on it, because that makes your Corridon super scary, because they have to respect the speed boost, because it can suddenly be faster than Calyrex, Shadow Rider, Fluttermane, Zacian, a lot of that stuff, without any big issue. And with Flame Charge, you're also able to play a bit more bulk on Corridon, which is also pretty cool. But what's very good about Corridon is that it enables photosynthesis Pokemon to go off. For example, that Walking Wake with a Life Orb, it's a pretty cool tag, because with photosynthesis, it gets a speed boost, and Hydro Steam with Terra Water gets a lot of KOs. And with Fluttermane and the choice specs as well, I have a very, very, very good offensive core, and also very fast offensive core, which is also pretty cool. I can also play it with slow mode with Trick Room Farigiraf, and also being able to block priorities. For example, the Grassy Glide for Walking Wake, or the Thunderclap for Walking Wake if it is Terrad, or also Fake Out for Corridon. In general, there are a lot of priorities running around in the current meta. These Incineroar Rillaboom teams are everywhere, and that's why I think Farigiraf is such a good pick in the current meta, and Terra Fire is just really good, because I bring it into the Rillaboom Incineroar matchups, and having Terra Fire in this Hun makes it a very good defensive type, actually, because water attacks get reduced because of the sun. So then suddenly fire is a decent defensive type, because you also resist fairy type attacks from stuff like Fluttermane as well, which is pretty cool. I've decided to run a Soul Rest Incineroar, because I think a Soul Rest is an item that should be on every team to perform well, in my opinion. It's interesting because the Calyrex Ice Rider team that won the Victory Road Challenge, built by Juan Manuel Odriozola, didn't have an Assault Vest Pokemon, but I just like having one, so I decided to give it to Incineroar and just 4 attacks. It is also a decent threat, especially in the sun. The Flare Blitzes hurt a lot, and having the opportunity to get damage reduction with Intimidate felt also pretty good. And obviously I also needed a grass type, so I added in Amoonguss with Terra Dark. Terra Dark especially helps against Taunt Tornadus, Calyrex Shadow Rider, and Psy Spam. And that was the team I was using. And also I'm a big fan of Sludge Bomb Amoonguss. I like Sludge Bomb more than Pollen Puff currently, and this Amoonguss has felt so great. And the team is insane. I've been laddering with it as well, and it's crazy good. We can take a look at my tournament one. I was able to win 13 of my 14 rounds. Round 1 I played against a Zamazenta team, which was pretty doable. I can click on the teams as well. It looks weird because there's a Pelipper, and the matchup shouldn't be as good for me as you might expect. But the good part is working with Amoonguss was able to shut down the Zamazenta, especially since the Fluttermane didn't have Taunt. The Amoonguss was super good in this matchup, and as you can probably already expect, Walking Wake in this matchup was also super good. Like Walking Wake, Koraidon, and Amoonguss just single-handedly dealt with everything here, and Fluttermane also, there's no fairy resist, so Fluttermane was also pretty good. So I used my 3 offensive Pokemon with Amoonguss in this matchup, and it was pretty easy. I can see if I could open the pairings to see if I won the sets 2-0 or 2-1. So the first set I won 2-0, yeah. Then in round 2, I played against a Calyrex Shadow Rider team with Tornadus, Incineroar, Amoonguss, Urshifu, but Landorus, which is an interesting pick. It was Focus Sash Calyrex, but this matchup felt also pretty good because I was using Incineroar in this matchup, and Incineroar was just really decent, especially with Farigiraf when I set up the Trick Room, because I was also Terra Grass to get around the Amoonguss. So Incineroar Farigiraf was pretty decent in this matchup, and I also used Koraidon, and I think I used Fluttermane as well to win the game, and it was where do we have it? Another 2-0 win, correct. And then in round 3, I was playing against Calyrex Ice Rider. And Calyrex Ice Rider is everywhere. I can't see it anymore. But the funny thing, in this tournament, it wasn't in top 8. I will take a deeper look into the top 8 teams as well, so stay tuned. But first of all, I wanted to talk about my one. It is close combat Calyrex, which is also interesting instead of high horsepower. And it's a bit scary because with Farigiraf, I can't fake out it with Incineroar, but it is Terra Water, and the Wellspring Ogapon also didn't have Spiky Shield, so I could just lead Koraidon, Amoonguss, and KO the Wellspring Ogapon, for example, with Terra Flare Blitz, and put the Ice Rider to sleep with Spore. So Koraidon Amoonguss was such a good lead here, once again, and I think I also used Walking Wake, because the cool part about Koraidon and Amoonguss as well is that if they lead Amoonguss and decide to go for Terra Water, the Amoonguss that terras in the Amoonguss Mirror has such a big disadvantage because it can get redirected by the opposing Amoonguss, it can get spored. So every time I play Amoonguss, people say my team is weak to Amoonguss, and it is kind of true because I just have one immunity and it's my own Amoonguss to Spore and Rage Powder. But what people don't realize is that all my team can hit Amoonguss for super good damage, and if it decides to Terra, then my Amoonguss just has a good time. So it's not as bad as you might think it is. But I think, if I remember correctly, this match was just a 2-1. Let's see. Yeah, it was a 2-1. I lost game 2 to Torko, I think. but in the end it was a win. Then in round 4 I had my loss, and it was tough because I was not really focusing on that game, because at the same time I was playing against Simone Sanvito in the other tournament. So I was rather focusing on the Kyogre game, because I used Kyogre in the Victory Road Spring Challenge. And so he used Calyrex Ice Rider as well, but his Calyrex Ice Rider was Terra Grass, if I remember correctly, instead of Terra Fire. And it was basically a very similar archetype with Incineroar, Rillaboom, Pelipper, Rapid Strike, Urshifu, but the leftovers of Charludon is very interesting here. I tried to win that game, I think, with Walking Wake again, with Farigiraf as well, but I just lost 2-0, if I remember correctly. Yeah, nothing to be done here. And that showed me that multiple gaming is not as easy as I expected it to be, but it do be like that. Game 5, I played against the Kyogre, and that was a very clean win, I have to say, because in that game I was able to use Flutter Mane and Amoonguss pretty well. Flutter Mane Amoonguss was just so good here. Koraidon was also very important, obviously, to turn off the rain and put up the sun. If there was a rain dance Tornadus, that's why I had to remove the Tornadus first, but after that it was pretty easy. I think it was another 2-0 win, might be wrong, but yeah, it was a 2-0 win. Yeah, Amoonguss has so many good matchups, it's insane. It's one of the Pokemon that can keep up with the big restricted, and that's also important. It's not always about what is the best restricted Pokemon, but what are Pokemon that can keep up with the restricted. And this game was insane, because against that guy, he hard read me turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 in game 1. But then I was in a situation where he just had his Terra Fairy Heatran at 10%, his full life Koraidon, and his full life Wellspring Ogerpon against my full life Terra Fairy Flutter Mane. And I just clicked Gleam, 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 and won the game, because I was able to survive the Ivy Cudgel as well, because after the IKO Heatran and Koraidon, I dealt like 70% to Ogerpon Wellspring, and Ivy Cudgel didn't pick up the KO. The sun was already gone, but my Flutter Mane is such a goat, and it carried out the game. It carried the game, and after he hard read me game 1, I decided to do something different. Against Heatran Umbreon lead, I led with Flutter Mane Koraidon, and I said, okay, his Heatran is gonna protect and the Umbreon is gonna Terra Yawn. So what I do is Shadow Ball, Terra Flare Blitz the Umbreon. And what happens, he protected Heatran, he Terra'd his Umbreon died to Shadow Ball Flare Blitz, and then it was game. It was immediately over. He couldn't recover from that, and that's where I felt pretty good, because at that point I was 5-1. It was a 2-0 win, I'm pretty sure. It was, yeah, and then I felt pretty good, because I was 5-1 in this tournament, and in the other tournament I was 5-3. At that point, I still decided to play the last round to finish off 6-3. I finished in the end. I finished 47th, I think, out of 260 people. Where do we have me? Yeah, 47 out of, like, if you count it, you have to count 80 plus 180. Yeah, that's 260. And in this tournament, we've had, let's take a look. It's not that tournament. Let's just take a quick look. How many players we've had? We've had 358 players. So that was the biggest tournament in Regulation G so far, and I was 5-1 back then. And then I played against Chase Michelle, and it was a Koraidon team again, but a different one. We will talk about the team a bit more in a bit, but it was very close. Game 3 came down to a 50, and he kind of choked the game because he used Follow Me with Ogre Pawn and Collision Course on my Koraidon instead of Collision Coursing my Incineroar, and that's how I was able to win the game. But overall, Fluttermane was also pretty good in that matchup. In Game 2 and Game 3 though, after he led with Torn Lando every game, I decided to lead Incineroar Farigiraf, and then I fake out the land with set up Trick Room, and then I just Flare Blitz Psychic everything because he brought Torn, Lando, Koraidon, Ogapon every game, and that's how I was able to win. It was a 2-1, but I also had to go for a choke in the end, but that's how I was able to win the game. Against Puma, I didn't play because he had to go, he said. So that was just a free win. But in round 9, I played against Kemi, and Kemi also made it to top 8, I think. I prepared all the top 8 teams right here. If it would load, I don't know what's happening right now. Showdown? Okay, thank you. Yeah, Kemi also made it to top 8. So with a Zamazenta team. And once again, Walking Wake and Fluttermane, Koraidon, and Amoonguss just have a good time into Zamazenta. It felt pretty easy again. It was a 2-0 without any problems. Pretty good matchup for me. And then I finished up 3rd, I think, in Swiss. And we had a bracket of all 7 to go to day 2. And then in day 2, I had a bye, starting off with a bye. And then in top 16, I played against Scarlet Skill. Scarlet Skill used a very interesting team with Calyrex Shadow Rider. This team is pretty decent because it runs around everywhere. The Rillaboom, Incineroar, Amoonguss, Shadow Rider, Urshifu core, but it's not Scarf Urshifu, it's Mystic Water Urshifu instead with Psyshock on the Shadow Rider. I cannot remember a lot about the series. If I remember correctly, Farigiraf was super good with Fluttermane because, as you can see, I can just, especially since the Amoonguss is Terra Dark, Dazzling Gleam Psychic just looks very, very delicious. And Farigiraf having a decent matchup into Shadow Rider also really helped. And since it's also a Terra Dark Amoonguss, I can KO it with Flare Blitz from Koraidon, even if it Terras, which is pretty cool since it's not Terra Water. And that was a game where it went to game 3, if I remember correctly. But I was able to win it without any big problems. Then the top 8 game. And this was a roller coaster. In top 8, it is a Dozo Tinglu team with Terrastellar Zacian. I think these Zacian teams are pretty interesting. I will also talk a bit more about that team in general as well. But first of all, how was the matchup? The matchup felt all right. All 3 games I led with Wake and Koraidon. And I always got the turn 1 correctly. Like in game 1, turn 1, I decided to go for Draco Meteor Collision Course into Dondozo, and he protects Tinglu and goes for Yawn. I immediately win the game, but then I miss a Draco Meteor, and then it gets dicey, but I was still able to win the game. Game 2, I miss yet another Draco onto Dondozo, and then he hits Fissure onto my Fluttermane, and then it was over, and I was like, come on, why? And then in game 3, I had to dodge a fissure with like that was my full life Amoongus against Dondozo, and the only way I can win is if I dodge one fissure, and I dodged it, but then he got a bit lucky and was able to get a second fissure off, and I dodged it again. So he hit 1 out of 3, which is fair, I guess. But this game really gave me anxiety. I was so done after that best of 3, because as you can see here, it was a 2-1. So then I took a small break, and then against Ibis Eremita, I was able to win 2-1 again. They made interesting choices, but just take a look at Koraidon Fluttermane in the lead. Fluttermane can break the Terra Shell from Terrapagos with Dazzling Gleam, and then I can KO it with Collision Course. And even if it decides to Terra to turn off the sun, it still takes 1,000,000 damage from the Collision Course. And also Clefairy, I can just abuse Clefairy by clicking Dazzling Gleam, Terra Flame Charge and stuff. And the nice part about my Koraidon, I will leak it right here, right now. My Koraidon always survives Bleakwind Storm into Terra Starstorm from Torn Terrapagos. So Air Slash is exactly as strong as a spread Bleakwind Storm. So in one game, he clicked Air Slash onto my Koraidon, and even after the Air Slash, I was able to survive the Terra Starstorm, and that caught him off guard. And overall, it was such an insanely good matchup for me. I lost one game because of my own stupidity, but yeah, I won all my Top Cup matches 2-1 up until the finals, where I faced Joe UX9, Joseph Ugarte, and this was a 2-0 win. If I remember correctly, let's see, can I I can't show it, but it was a 2-0 win. Yeah, it was. Overall, you can watch the VOD of the finals on Joe's channel. I can link it in the description as well. And I will link it in the description, because that final was such a banger final. It was so offensive. He used the Calyrex Shadow Rider team. He has so many good performances with that one team. He won multiple tournaments already with that, and I was able to beat him with offensive core of Walking Wake, Fluttermane, and Koraidon. These three just overwhelmed him, and in game 1, I brought Farigiraf, and in game 2, I brought Amoongus, because in game 2, I thought, okay, he won't fall for Farigiraf, and I want to have Amoongus in case he uses his Urshifu or his Raging Bolt. In these scenarios, Amoongus is pretty nice. Also helps against Rillaboom, and since his Incineroar doesn't have Flare Blitz, it is also not threatened by that one as well. So yeah, that was my tournament 1. I felt pretty happy with it, going 13-1 with a team I already practiced with a lot. And in general, the tournament looked pretty interesting, because I was not able to just win the tournament. I was able to show that Koraidon is a Pokemon you have to respect. It's interesting that in the top 8 that there are no Calyrex Ice Riders, because that mon nowadays has a usage of like, you run every time into the ladder. Like if you play best of 3 ladder, you will face Cali Ice into Cali Ice into Cali Ice. I think, was it Aaron Trailer? I don't remember who it was, but there was one guy on Twitter who said that he faced 15 Cali Ice Riders in a row. And it's not over exaggeration. It's like true. And Ice Rider is everywhere, but not here. Here we had the Zamazenta team, and I think Zamazenta is pretty cool. It makes a lot of sense to pair it with Pelipper to get rid of the fire weakness, as well as having White Guard support if you run an Iron Defense Zamazenta. I think Iron Defense is also the better set than White Guard. White Guard has a niche, but you can just pair Zamazenta with Pelipper and have White Guard that way. Also, Zamazenta having the recovery of grassy terrain and also having Intimidate support makes sense. I'm not the biggest fan of Flare Blitz in Rain, personally, but you still want Rain is not always up, and you can see the team. The team has a lot of problems into Amoonguss. Of course, you've got Terra Stellar Pelipper, which can OKO Amoonguss with Hurricane, and you've got Ogapon with Follow Me. But since many Amoonguss are opting for Sludge Bomb now, Ogapon is not really great into it. With Pollen Puff and Spore, it's better, but now that they have one Sludge Bomb, it's not great. Also not good for Rillaboom. Fluttermane also. I'm not a big fan of Speed Booster Fluttermane with Shadow Ball. It just hits Calyrex Shadow Rider, and it's pathetic, okay? Against Calyrex Shadow Rider, if it goes Terra Ghost, okay? It's still super effective Shadow Ball, it just deals 70%. You don't one-hit KO Terra Ghost Calyrex Shadow Rider. It's so sad. Speed Booster Fluttermane was such a good Pokemon back in the day, but it's so flawed nowadays. And it doesn't, like, you want speed control for Zamazenta, so you can click like Icy Wind Body Presses once you're set up, but I'm not a big fan of it anymore. So the team is alright. I wouldn't play it, but for a Zamazenta team, it can get as good as it gets. Also, let me know in the comments below if I should EV these teams and then give you like some sample teams for Regulation G, because it started yesterday and some of you might want to ladder with some teams but don't have any teams. Just let me know if you want to see something like that as well. Yeah, so Zamazenta is alright. I think it's not a top tier threat, but it can top cut a regional. Indianapolis starts tomorrow, so I think we might see a lot of Calyrex Ice Riders, a lot of Terrapagos, a lot of Shadow Riders, but my guess for the top cut is there are 8 Pokemon that get into top cut, okay? And I will say there will be 4 Ice Riders, there will be 2 Terrapagos, 1 Koraidon, and 1 Kyogre. That's my guess. No Groudon, no Zamazenta, no Zacian, no QM White. That's my guess. You can quote me right here, right now. Let's see how close it will be to that. Speaking of Shadow Rider, we have Focus Sash Shadow Rider here with Star Barrage, Psychic, Nest, Plot, and Protect. And Focus Sash is a good set. Is it the best set? I don't know. It helps in the mirror, that's true. And it also helps that you don't have to run a defensive Terra type for the mirror or for Incineroar. And you just have a Life Orb equipped, basically, if you Terra. But I'm not the biggest fan of Sash Calyrex Shadow Rider myself. I don't want to run into mirrors, so I won't use it. But having it paired with double Fake Out makes a lot of sense. When we've got Tailwind support from Tornadus, Rain Dance to shut off Koraidon, Groudon, and also with Urshifu, Rapid Strike with Choice Scarf, it makes a lot of sense. You would say, why run Choice Scarf if you have Tailwind? But it also helps in the mirror, because if you have an opposing Calyrex Shadow Rider under Tailwind and you have your Urshifu Rapid Strike under Tailwind, your Urshifu Rapid Strike is still faster than the opposing Calyrex Shadow Rider, and you can KO it with Terra Water Surging Strikes or with Rain Boosted Surging Strikes, which is pretty cool, I think. And that's what this combination is about. It's a very good team. You've got After You, Clefairy. It helps a lot into the Trick Room matchup. You have to be careful against Amoonguss though, because Amoonguss can redirect the After You. It can put Clefairy to sleep before it can click After You, because Amoonguss is usually slower than Clefairy, and every Trick Room team has an Amoonguss, I feel like. So it's not the best choice into Trick Room, but it is a choice. And we've got Incineroar with a Citrus Berry. So the team itself is very weak to Amoonguss once again. We have no Flare Blitz on Incineroar. We've got like Taunt on Tornadus, I guess, but that's still not great. So it's a team that can win tournaments, I think, but also not the best Calyrex Shadow Rider in my opinion. There are better ones, and we will see 2 more Shadow Rider teams in this video. Also, all my videos have a great length. I know, like, all my videos have like 40 to 50 minutes length, but I just love to talk. And if you also like to listen to me, then I think it's just great to have these long videos. I think like, if you don't want to watch these long videos, you can turn off at any second. I don't really mind. I just want to share everything I know and everything I can give to you in an appropriate way, and that obviously takes some time, you know. Next up, we've got Chase Michelle, who I played against in Swiss, and it's also a Koraidon team, but a bit more offensive than mine, I would say. Or not, I wouldn't say like more offensive, because I've got Walking Wake and Flutter Mane, but he has different tools. He has a Tailwind mode with Tornadus, and Tornadus on Koraidon teams also makes sense, because with Sunny Day, you can win the Weather War against opposing Tornadus with Rain Dance, or against Kyogre. Like, it's interesting that all the weather Pokemon have Tornadus, which can reset the weather as well, like Koraidon with Sunny Day Tornadus, Kyogre with Rain Dance Tornadus, and it makes a lot of sense. Terra Dark is pretty good for opposing Tornadus, so that you cannot get taunted against again, it's very good into Calyrex Shadow Rider, of course. It makes a lot of sense. And Raging Bolt and Sun with Magnet, Terra Electric, is a menace. The Thunderclaps deal so much damage, you cannot imagine. If you had a GU on the team instead of Ogapon as well, these Thunderclaps could could one-hit KO Flutter Mane, for example, even without Helping Hand. Like Magnet, Terra Electric, Beats of Wind, Photosynthesis, these modifiers are insane. You can do the calc. It will blow your mind. We've got Amoonguss with Terra Dark with Pollen Puff, interestingly enough. I think that's a team that doesn't really need Pollen Puff. It's way too offensive to use Pollen Puff. I'm a big fan of Sludge Bomb, as I said before. It also has with Terra Dark. Terra Dark makes sense. Terra Water is also a good defensive Terra type, so you have to be very careful when you choose the correct Terra on Amoonguss, because without Terra Water, Terra Dark is just worse into Flutter Mane, into Urshifu, and also some Calyrex don't run the Psychic move, or like the Psychic type move. It's either Psychic or Psyshock. Some of them run Draining Kiss, and suddenly Terra Dark isn't as good into Calyrex anymore. So you can also opt for like Terra Normal if you want to be more neutral into Calyrex Shadow Rider, but then the Psychic stabs still hurt a lot, and Normal is not the best type defensively, but it's an option at least. We've got Ogapon Halflane with Follow Me, Terra Fire, Sun boosted, Ivy Cudgels hurt a lot. I'm not the biggest fan on Ogapon on Koraidon teams. I've tried it myself. I just don't really like it, because you already have a Fire Nuke in Koraidon. You don't need a second one. Follow Me as a grass type is pretty cool, but I feel like you can have an Incineroar on that slot as well, and it would work. And then Pollen Puff on Amoonguss also makes a bit more sense. Also, we've got Breaking Swipe instead of Flame Charge, which is interesting. Breaking Swipe is a nice tool to hit Rayquaza, for example, otherwise you are walled by Rayquaza, and also dropping the attack from your opponents is also not bad. So Breaking Swipe is a good move itself, but Koraidon isn't really a user that really clicks Breaking Swipe. It rather wants to click Collision Course or Flare Blitz, I feel like. So it's an interesting choice. Also, Breaking Swipe probably doesn't do so much damage into Rayquaza if I think about it, because it's still just a spread Breaking Swipe, and you don't get the Orichalcum Pulse boost because Rayquaza has Airlock as an ability. So I would assume Breaking Swipe does like 50, 40, something around that line. So yeah, I don't know about that one. And Landorus, just the classic Landorus, Terra Poison substitute. Landorus dropped in usage quite a bit, but I can imagine it can rise again, especially if Miraidon performs well. Maybe we'll see a Miraidon top-cutting indie as well. I think Miraidon is underutilized right now, and I think it can definitely do well, and because of the lack of ground types currently. So it can click Electro Drifts for free. Spectre Electric with Helping Hand support is just nuts. And that's why Landorus is pretty good right now, I think. Then against Wolfgang, that's the guy I played against. I think Terra Stellar is the wrong choice on Zacian. I think you rather want a defensive Terra like Terra Water, especially with Substitute. You can get into situations where you can get the Substitute up against stuff like Incineroar. It can still click Parting Shot, but you can still create situations because Intimidate doesn't go through the Substitute where they cannot Intimidate cycle you know. That's what I like about it. Or you go Terra Fairy, that's probably better than Terra Stellar, because I think having the play rough boost consistently is better, as well as getting rid of a Steel type. Steel itself is the best defensive type, but I feel like on Zacian, you can go Mono Fairy and don't be too bad. I think there was also one guy running Clear Amulet Zacian, so it wasn't even Zacian Crowned, it was the regular Zacian, which is an interesting approach. But Zacian Crowned is just the better Pokemon. I like the set, but I would recommend running Terra Water. Yeah, Raging Bolt on these kind of teams makes sense. Raging Bolt is one of the Pokemon that are nearly restricted. With the stat distribution, the move distribution, it can keep up with a restricted Pokemon. And Terra Water on an Assault Vest set makes a lot of sense because it has a good Trick Room matchup. It's good into Torkoal, it's good into Ice Rider if you Terra it. So it's just pretty good itself. When we've got Gouging Fire, and I'm not really high on Gouging Fire currently. It's Flare Blitz instead of Heat Crash, makes a lot of sense, because I think Heat Crash has just 40 base power against Calyrex Ice Rider, for example, and all the restricteds are just very, very heavy, and so running Flare Blitz instead of Heat Crash makes sense, but I think Gouging Fire is not really good right now. Dozo Tinglu is an interesting choice. Running Fissure, I don't know about this one, chat, or like, chat, I feel like I'm streaming. I don't know about this one. What was your experience with Fissure? Tell me down in the comments below, because I still can't get over this move. I'm still traumatized. I think Heavy Slam is more consistent, but you can create win plans with Fissure, I guess. The Tinglu set is correct, though. Sand to Buonation, Taunt for Amoonguss, Protect, Rocky Helmet, Terra Poison. This Tinglu is very threatening if it hits the Sand Tombs. Sand Tomb is not a move I would use because of 85% accuracy. Also, Ruination just having 90% accuracy. Tinglu and Chiyu are just Pokemon that rely on their moves way too often. That's what I don't like. And this Champao was very scary for me when I played against him, but since he had Ice Spinner instead of Icy Crash, it was doable because my Amoonguss could always break the Focus Sash because of my Rocky Helmet, and then it dies to Fluttermane, Walking Wake, and Koraidon in one hit. Terra Stellar is an interesting choice because we've got no fake out immunities at all. We have no covered cloak, no Farigiraf, no Indeedee, no ghost type, no Terra Ghost. So it's a bit questionable not running a single fake out immunity, especially fake out plus Urshifu can get pretty scary. So I would opt for one Terra Ghost at least, but on V6 it's rather difficult. But if you run Terra Stellarization, I think you are allowed to run Terra Ghost Champao. But the team itself is pretty cool. There was also a version where I played in a different tournament. I played against a Skeledirge Tinglu team, Skeledirge over Dozo, and it was a bit scary because Skeledirge resists with fairy moves from Fluttermane, resists with Koraidon completely, but Terrafire Flablet still does like 2 billion, but yeah. Then in top 4 we've got Mirai, who played a Calyrex Shadow Mirror against Joe and lost, unfortunately. We have Focus Sash, Terra Ghost, Calyrex again with Psyshock, Mystic Water Urshifu this time, instead of Scarf, again with Tornadus support, Incineroar and Amoonguss, and look at that Amoonguss set. What happened here? Substitute Spore, Foul Play, Rage Powder. I feel like Terra Dark Foul Play is real. It deals a lot of damage into Ice Rider. I think it does 80%. As far as I know, a Foul Play does 50%, so with Terra Dark it does 75 to 80, around that. And with Substitute and Spore you can like stall out Trick Room. It looks like the ultimate Trick Room counter. And Substitute is so interesting on Amoonguss. I think it's not like great, but it's interesting to say the least. Also, Mirai is a top European player. I think it's Carlos Cabal. I played against him in Dortmund and I lost to him. That's why I can say that he's a good player. And yeah, he used a very interesting Amoonguss set, as you can see, and made it up to top 4. And I think sub is not quite correct, but it's interesting. Then we've got the Incineroar that drop Flare Blitz again. As you can see, many Incineroar are dropping Flare Blitz. They are instead running Will-O-Wisp or Taunt. And you also have to be very careful about that one. Which 4th move you run is up to you. I think you cannot drop Knockoff in the current meta. You just want to remove items, especially if you paired with Amoonguss. You can remove safety goggles from opposing Incineroar, so your Amoonguss can spore the Incineroar. You want to hit Calyrex Shadow Rider, because if you just have Flare Blitz and when you get intimidated, suddenly the Calyrex Shadow Rider doesn't even have to Terra against your Incineroar, and that's just bad. So Knockoff is needed. Fake Out obviously is the best move. I saw some people dropping Parting Shot on Incineroar, and this is just wrong. Guys, don't drop Parting Shot on your Incineroar, okay? You can drop Flare Blitz. Flare Blitz is really good into stuff like Amoonguss, Willow-Boom, Terra Fairy, Shadow Rider, Ice Rider, and stuff like that, but you don't necessarily need it. Against some of these, you can just click Will-O-Wisp instead, or Taunt for Amoonguss, for example. Then we've got Tornadus, Terra Dark, Cover Cloak again. I feel like Cover Cloak is the most common item on Tornadus right now. It's not a helmet anymore, and it makes a lot of sense. Once again, you want speed control on this, and Tornadus is just the best speed control you can get. And then you have a Chiempao as well with Clear Amulet, Terra Grass. I think Clear Amulet, Terra Grass is an interesting set. Terra Grass and Rain is also not bad defensively, to be fair. But it's not great into Urshifu, you have to say. But you still have Tornadus and Amoonguss and Calyrex Shadow Rider, so it still synergizes pretty well with them. And it overcomes the main weakness in Incineroar with a Clear Amulet. Terra Grass is an interesting choice. The cool part about Terra Grass still is that you survive a move from Urshifu Rapid Strike, that's fair, and you resist all the priorities. Thunderclap from Raging Bolt, Grassy Glide from Incineroar, Grassy Glide Incineroar, what the fuck? Grassy Glide Willow-Boom. So if you don't run Focus Sash, Grass is actually a pretty cool defensive and also offensive type, because you cannot redirect it by Amoonguss as well. You have nothing to fear about against Water Ogerpon, so it's pretty cool. I like it, and it makes sense because you already have Focus Sash on Calyrex Shadow Rider, so you need a different item on Chiempao, and then Clear Amulet is just the best choice right here, because Life Orb, I don't know. Then the guy who lost to me in top 4 Also dropped Flare Blitz for Incineroar for Will-O-Wisp. It makes sense for Terrapagos, because if you have Terrapagos Incin on the field, they can just go Urshifu if you have Flare Blitz and then threaten you a lot. But with Will-O-Wisp, the Urshifu cannot freely switch into that board position. When we've got a Specs, Terra Steel, Goldango, just having an offensive Pokemon right here makes sense, because you have Ogre Water. I'm not a big fan of Ogre Water in the current meta. There are a lot of dragons running around, and it just gets overwhelmed so quickly. You have Redirection on Clefairy as well. We've got Moonblast instead of After You here, and we've got Heal Pulse, no Helping Hand as well. Makes sense. You don't need to Helping Hand. You have Terrapagos. You cannot Helping Hand your Goldango anyways because of Goddess Gold, and having Heal Pulse support for Terrapagos is pretty cool. You probably saw it with Comfy already. That recovering your Terrapagos can be pretty nice. Still, I think the team has some issues. As I said, he couldn't really beat Flutter Koraidon at all. Had to win multiple mind games, and even then it was not really doable. Air Slash instead of Bleak Wind Storm is interesting. It's pretty cool into Mienshao and Pelipper if they decide to spam White Guard instead, but you've already got Taunt. I think with Taunt, you are allowed to run Bleak Wind Storm, but it's also just 80%. But I think Bleak Wind Storm is just a good move to drop. It's way too good to not drop it, but he made it up to number 3, so nothing to complain about, I guess. And then also I didn't show the Terrapagos set. It's Cover Cloak. Makes sense. It addresses all the weaknesses it has. Fake Out, Snarl. I like Cover Cloak and Terrapagos more than Leftovers personally, because with Leftovers you can also get Cycle Down as well, which I don't like with Fake Out and Parting Shot. I know that Cover Cloak doesn't block Parting Shot, but you can like pressure the Incineroar with Earth Power. But if you are lefties, it can still just Fake Out you when the opponent switches, when he switches back again, and when you get put to sleep with Spore. So Cover Cloak addresses that really nicely, and I like it. So if you want an defensive Terrapagos, so no Meteor Beam or Spec set, then I recommend running Covered Cloak. And then last but not least is the Joe team. Again, Sash, Calyrex, he was running Terra Ghost, well not Terra Psychic, this is a mistake. Yeah, it's the most common set right now, and it makes sense. I already talked about this one. He used Core Mind Raging Bolt on this, which is interesting, with Terra Fairy. Raging Bolt is just really good into the Fire Water Grass Core in general, and also having 2 setuppers is always nice. Not having just this one way of setup to win, having 2 instead makes sense. We've got the double knockoff core, and once again, Will-O-Wisp instead of Flare Blitz on Incineroar. It's very common right now. I think that there will be a time where Flare Blitz will come back, but apparently right now Will-O-Wisp has taken over the Incineroars, so I can feel that. We've got Rillaboom, of course, with Terra Fire, not Terra Normal. Terra Normal is pretty nice into Calyrex, but Terra Fire is just better overall. Resisting fire type attacks, resisting Flutter Mains, fairy types attacks makes sense. Also for like Torkoal as well, because this team doesn't have a Rain Dance Tornadus. We've got also Mystic Water Urshifu on this, not Choice Scarf Urshifu. So in general, what you can say about that team, it is pretty slow, right? There's just Calyrex Shadow Rider, which is super fast, and then there's this huge gap up to Urshifu Rapid Strike. I think even his Urshifu is rather bulky and not very fast. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it really addresses some of the problems that Raging Bolt or Calyrex have, because Raging Bolt doesn't like to steer down ground types. Urshifu Rapid Strike can help against those, and it just makes sense if you have double Fake Out to just put Urshifu on your team because of the Unsteam Fist ability. You can create a lot of situations where you can pin the opponent down just with double Fake Out Urshifu. It's insane. And then we've got Amoonguss as well, redirection for both your setuppers, and also Sludge Bomb instead of Point Puff. Joe, thank you for that. Makes a lot of sense, and as I said, Amoonguss is one of the top tier Pokemon that can keep up with the restrictors in general. This has like the restricted non-restricted Pokemon that can keep up with the restricted Pokemon the most. I feel like Pelipper, for example, it just has 444 BST. Like, look at these stats. It has Drizzle, which is nice, but can it really keep up? People are using it because of Wild Guard, but I'm telling you, checking Calyrex Ice Rider or Shadow Rider, if your only way to check it is Wild Guard, it's alright, but there are better ways. And you will see it in Indianapolis Regional, you will see it in the Stockholm Regional, that Pelipper, I'm going to say it right now, I say Pelipper will not top card. Well, there's one Pelipper team that will top card on these Calyrex Ice Rider teams, but the other Calyrex Ice Rider teams will have no Pelipper on them. I'm a Pelipper hater. Sorry if you're a Pelipper fan. Don't judge me for my opinion. Everyone has his own opinion. So, yeah. If you want, I would appreciate it if you write down in the comments below which of these teams is your favorite team. Is it the Calyrex Shadow Rider version from Mirai? Is it the one from Joe or the one from Ref Amici? Is it the Koraidon team from me? Or maybe I will also link the standings, so you can also take a look at all other teams. We have Lunala that made it into top 16, for example. We've also got a Reshiram team. We've got Kyogre. If you want to take a deeper look into these teams, you can just open these teams. If you go to the standings page, you can then go onto the list button right here, and then it opens you the open sheet. You can copy it to the clipboard, go back to Showdown, click new team, and then boom, you've got the team immediately. No EVs, of course, but if you just see a team that looks pretty cool to you, you can just grab it here, put your own EVs on it, and start playing. That's what I like about Limitless tournaments. Or if you just want to take a look at the meta, you can click the metagame tab, and you can see Incineroar has a negative winning percentage because everyone is using it. The top players are using it, but also the bottom players are using it. And the interesting part here is that there is like Ogapon Cornerstone with 65% win rate. That's so crazy. 55-29. It's time to use Ogapon Cornerstone, guys. I'm telling you. But yeah, that's it for the video. Let me know down in the comments below which team you like the most. If you want to see more of this content, I will probably break down the Indianapolis Regional and the Stockholm Regional as well. I'm hoping you look forward for that. Also check out my other content, like the Randbats content that is currently on the way. I would gladly appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.